The previous basket is under review.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Basket Under Review podcast. I am your host, Eamonn Brennan of buzzer at EamonnBrennan.com. We have a national champion. The Michigan Wolverines have just been crowned here in Indianapolis. I'm on the floor just next to the I'm not on the floor. I'm at a table just next to the floor. But lots of people are on the floor. People are milling around. We've got some good atmosphere in here. Lots of people taking their selfies and doing the whole thing. We're going to talk, obviously, about the 2026 national champion Michigan Wolverines. We're going to talk about the game that they had to win against UConn in a, like a gritty, kind of ugly, the kind of game that you think UConn probably wanted to have and just didn't quite make enough shots. We'll get to all of that. What it means for Dusty May, what it means for the sport and the tactics and the strategy and all the stuff that goes with it really quickly before we get to our reoccurring guest, Tate Frazier, the ringer, who's here. We have to tell you, go to basketunderreview.com. The Basket Under Review guys have been crushing it all weekend. It's been great hanging out with them. They've been doing really good work. For $10 a month, you get access to their stuff at Basket Under Review. You get access to the Discord, and you support this show. So we're really grateful for everybody who's doing that and helping us do what we do. Also, check out our presenting sponsor, Homefield, homefieldapparel.com, best place in the world to get college athletics apparel. Thank you, as ever, to Homefield for sponsoring our show. Okay, Tate, quick intro this week because we got a lot to get to.
That's right.
Before we close the book on the 2026 season. What did you make of all that?
Man, I mean, what a storyline for Dusty May. I mean, this was just two programs that were kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum when you talk about title games and results, right? UConn 6-0 in title games. It felt like, will we ever see them lose a title game? And then for Michigan, it just feels like every single time they're knocking on the door, they end up being the bridesmaid instead of the bride. And we finally saw those, courses cross the other direction. And Dusty May was able to get this program over the hump. To see an Indiana kid be able to be crowned in Indiana, he was a little bit emotional as you saw him on the podium. Ernie had a nice moment with him, kind of helping him reflect. It does feel like he's been matter of fact, all about business, but it finally hit him and this Michigan team at large that they finally got over the hump and got this thing done. So what a moment. And like you said, this was UConn's game. They kind of set the terms of engagement of Michigan. They just had a championship DNA, and yet again, they were able to find a way to win.
Yeah, it was really the case that we've kind of been talking about with Michigan all through the tournament. Their best version of themselves is like unstoppable. They'll hang 100 on you. Mm-hmm. The game is over before you even had a chance. And we saw that Saturday, obviously, against Arizona, another really elite team that just couldn't hang. This was more like Michigan's base case. This was their floor in some ways because of the shooting and how bad it was. On the other end, when they hit threes, they're basically unstoppable. If they don't hit threes, you have a chance. And they gave UConn a chance. And UConn, as Dan Hurley just got done saying at the post-game press conference, just you can't miss that many decent looks. And when you do miss that many decent looks, if you're UConn, you don't have an alternative to go back in the post to get easy ones around the rim. It was just off the top of my head, stuck out to me. Most noticeable is probably the most uncomfortable Terrace Reed has looked in a game in a long, long time now. Just, he got a couple looks where when Mara was off the floor, a couple little hook shots and things that were working for him. But by and large, anytime he was being guarded by Mara, he just looked like he didn't really have an answer for it. And so you take that piece out of it for UConn, and they're trying to make shots, basically, and, against the Michigan length and all that switching out on the perimeter and all of UConn's stuff. The looks that they did were, that were clean were pretty few and far between and just didn't hit enough to get over the sort of variance issue that Michigan gives you with their easy points in the bucket, their fouls, and their ability to take that stuff away from you on the other end.
Yeah, absolutely. And UConn out-rebounded Michigan, which I think if you told us before the game that UConn was going to out-rebound Michigan, we'd probably say, well, that was a recipe for success. I think the turnovers that we did not see in, their first game in the Final Four kind of came back to bite them in this game a little bit. But you have to give credit to Michigan with their size and their length, and they're able to disrupt things on the other end. I mean, it was one of those games where if UConn had a couple possessions maybe go their way, a couple shots drop, we might have a different discussion at the end of the day. But, I have to give a lot of credit to just this Michigan team to be resilient. Every single time that they were getting hit, they just continued to find a way to bounce back. And they did it without Lindeborg. I mean, both games in the Final Four for Michigan to be able to find ways to win without a healthy Lindeborg, which, I mean, I don't even know what percentage you would give him, but I would say 60% is generous, and he basically said as much to Tracy at halftime. He was just like, yeah, I don't feel great out there. I'm trying my best to fight through it, but it's just not my best performance. And to get Elliot Cadeau, what he did, obviously, in the first game and what he did tonight, I mean, 19 points in this game, just was everywhere, found ways to make the right play. And, him winning most outstanding player is a credit to him, because obviously for him to kind of get in the portal, not have an idea of where he's going to end up, and to go to a place with Dusty May, have Dusty May believe in him. I just think that's a really incredible story as well.
It really is. And the discussion around Michigan is kind of interesting, because I've heard people talk about it in two ways. One where, it's like underselling the guys and calling them kind of like cast-offs, which also isn't true. Like, Yaxel's one of the biggest guys in the portal. I think when Cadeau came out of North Carolina, like, there was clear potential there. But he also had plenty of flaws at UNC that reduced his desirability a little bit. I've also heard people like, Michigan loaded up on transfers and spent the most money or whatever. Like, not really. You know what I mean? Like, they got big transfers, and they built a team and did it in a very modern way, but we're pretty savvy in how they put the team together. I think if you went down the line and looked at like value per player among the top 20, top 25 programs in the country this year, Michigan would be right up there. And so Cadeau is a perfect example. He was the best guy at the Final Four for them. So key to everything they did well. Anytime UConn got a little bit of a sniff in the second half, he felt like Cadeau was going to do something well, get to the free throw line, find somebody. And the nerves and the anxiety that UConn was able to generate, and I kind of felt it too. I felt coming into this game like our buddy Will Warren at Basket Under Review described it as like UConn has the mandate of heaven. Like, for just whatever reason, they are able to do this. And there's obviously reasons behind it, but you just sort of take them a little bit for granted and kind of expect them to come in and figure something out. And it never felt to me like this game was going to be a blowout. And then you get into it, and Hurley talked about this in the post game, a couple buckets here or there that they didn't get that really would have put some game pressure on Michigan. Like they cut the lead to 4 with a couple minutes left, and then you really get to see how nervous and anxious a team can be and how they can adjust to that, because there are a couple moments, a couple turnovers late. It's just you hang around. But Cadeau kind of felt impervious to that pretty much all weekend, particularly against Arizona, where he more or less dominated the game. And again tonight on both ends of the floor was really great in the full court press that Dusty threw at them, which was a bit of a wrinkle. And yeah, it's just his development and growth as a player from his time at Carolina to what he's able to do on the floor, and how it fits with this roster that when you looked at it in the fall, you're like, Michigan might have too many big guys. I don't know if they have enough shooting. Like, how's this all going to work? How does this fit in 2026? And it turns out this is like, the new age of college basketball, and Dusty kind of cracked the code with it.
Yeah,
before any of us realized it.
Right. Speaking of the new age, I mean, yeah,
there's Will.
Yeah, I love it. Speaking of the new age, I mean, this is the first time we've had 5 transfers win the national championship as a starting 5. I think that's also, I mean, there's going to be a lot of things that we take away from this championship. Obviously, Dusty May, a coronation for him as one of the best coaches in college basketball. But I think the fact that you were able to get 5 guys in the portal, build out a team, identify the roles. And you heard Cadeau after the game talking about it. He's just like, we didn't really have anybody that was like, man, I didn't get my numbers tonight. And that was sort of a knock on Yaxel when he was kind of first team All-American. They're like, this guy's averaging 14 points a game. But if you watch Michigan, you understand that it's not really about that, because that's how this team sort of plays. It's the way that the game goes is how they kind of ride the hot hand, go with who's doing what. And in this game, it kind of exemplified that fact, because Cadeau was that guy for them. Morez Johnson had a great game. Trey McKinney, I mean, 9 points, 8 rebounds. I mean, he was just everywhere making plays for them as well. A freshman from Flint, which is a nice storyline. So just for those to have those 5 guys all play up and kind of be individually great, but also as a team great, I feel like that is a sort of a perfect example of where we are in college basketball. This is kind of the new way you can build a team and go win a title.
Yeah, and like we've talked about all year too with Michigan, you know, I mean, these guys went 2 of 15 from three in this game,
Yeah.
and you never super with a couple of hints here and there. It always felt like it was much more likely to go the other way, and that it was much more likely to be a 15-point UConn win than a Michigan win than a UConn like comeback, force the last bucket or two and get into a one possession game late. It was always an uphill battle, and for Michigan, the games this year were never an uphill battle, and that was always the thing with them. Is just like even if they shoot horrendously as they did tonight, particularly in the first half, you're just gonna have a baseline of viability there, and that's what I think is the most incredible thing that Dusty did in building this team and this roster, and we've seen it across the sport, with a lot of the best teams this year. Arizona, to a certain extent, Florida was really kind of a pioneer in this movement of playing so many bigs, and getting really big at the three and just kind of figuring it out and making it work for them. So it's going to be really interesting to see where coaches take this stuff, because there's a whole, like, do we swerve now? Is the value for guys in the portal going to be, like, do you have to go out and get three bigs and play this way if you want to compete with the Michigans of the world? Or do you go the other way and the value is for guys who shoot? It's going to be really interesting to see how the sport reacts to Dusty's success. But in the meantime, it's pretty remarkable. And I think I wrote this the other day. It would be enough if Dusty was like one of these kind of old school systems coaches. It's like, okay, I've built this perfect machine. I can roll the balls out and let these guys just kind of go figure it out. But he's like hunting every single tiny margin, like the lob stuff from the first game against Arizona this weekend, where he actually told Elliot Cadeau, pass it off the backboard, because we're going to need, like, Krivas is actually going to be a problem for us. Don't just try to do a direct lob tomorrow. And we were talking about it on the show Saturday night. Like, it sure felt like Cadeau was just chucking the ball up there as a pass. That's like planned. He came up with that. That's just a little tweak he threw in, according to opponent. Tonight we had it with the full court press. I don't recall Michigan pressing teams too often this year. I could be wrong about that. And, that maybe their possessions on press are a little higher. But usually I feel like when they have done it, it's like token. They pick guys up with the ball at the opposite free throw line, give a little pressure, make it take a little while to get in your offense. And tonight against UConn, it was like a real deal press and trapping, and it was clearly a stress inducer for UConn. Then they'd get the ball over half court and have 10 fewer seconds to get into their offensive stuff, and it just felt like another little adjustment on top of all the stuff that Michigan does really well anyway. And you're just at that point, it kind of feels like it's almost unfair.
Yeah, and they missed a 10-second call earlier in the first half where Dusty was kind of losing his mind about it, but that was all because of the press that they were throwing out. And then you had Demery in foul trouble, and once they didn't have Demery on the court and they were dealing with his foul trouble, Solo Ball also had foul trouble as well. So you got guys who are ball handlers that now aren't on the floor for them, and you're having to rely on, Smith to come in, and he did play pretty well. I mean, he had some nice moments for UConn, but it did feel like at times this UConn offense that we have gushed about for so long, about how they run these beautiful sets, and there's so much stuff that they do on on that end of the floor, and the ingenuity and all that sort of stuff. It just felt like for the first time they were a little bit on their heels on offense, because like you said, they had to start their sets, with 16 seconds on the clock, and they didn't get into the secondary set and the secondary rotation of Michigan's defense to actually get them in a position where they were struggling, and they had to go a lot of ISO ball. And it just, there's solo ball and then there's ISO ball, and I felt like there was more ISO ball than solo ball at times tonight. And I just think that goes back to what you're saying, a little tweak by Dusty May. And that's why I thought this game, as much as there's people that are going to say like the offense wasn't great in this game and nitpick it and say, well, I thought you said this was going to be such a high level game and all sort of stuff. It was high level in the sense that both of these coaches were doing so much to throw the other one to play left-handed, and they continued to answer the bell. And you got to give Michigan credit, because the energy, the effort, all that sort of stuff on defense was really the difference in this game.
It was, yeah, and the defensive stuff, you're right to mention it, very noticeable. I mean, there were multiple possessions where it just seemed like Cadeau was practically playing zone, because UConn would be running its guys around, and then Caravan would come through, and Mullins would come through, and he's just kind of standing in the same spot.
Right.
And they had obviously the one offensive foul call where he basically just knew where Mullins was going to go on which set and stood in front of it, and got a really what was a a huge call and a huge swing at that time of the game as UConn is just like, you can see Dan Hurley, he was right across from me from where I'm sitting, and you just see him just like every little thing. It's like playing on like all Madden mode or something. You know what I mean? And like every little thing that goes against you, the computer hits a 70-yard pass to Randy Moss or whatever, and he's just like, oh my
disgusted.
God, okay, like yeah, it's just like every little thing is just like, you know, fighting for every little edge, and it was fun to watch at that level. It was high level in that way. It's just like shots didn't go down, and that's what he said. I mean, you know, UConn got 22 offensive rebounds. Like the you know, his players gave them about everything you could ask, coaching wise and, you know, effort wise and all that good stuff. It's just like, you want to beat Michigan, they have to shoot it bad and you got to shoot it good, and that was the missing.
Was it a talking point in the arena, that one rim? So, I mean, Michigan goes 0 for 8 from 3, you know, going that way. Then we obviously switch at halftime. UConn shooting on that rim. They didn't make a 3. They couldn't buy a bucket. And then Braylon Mullins finally hit a 3 to kind of knock the cap off. But was that a talking point? Because at home, as I'm watching, I mean, they mentioned it during the broadcast a few times, Ian Eagle did. Yeah. But just for me, I was like, man, is there something going on? Is this like 9 3/4, or is this like a little bit off center? Like, this rim just seems a little bit off.
I didn't clock it personally, and I was stressed out watching the game and not really talking to people. The only time I realized it was when that Mullen shot went down, and I had somebody text me like, "That's the first make on that rim from 3." And I was like, "Oh, yeah. That makes sense actually." When you look at it, yeah, it was busted. I mean, it was a bad shooting night for both teams from the perimeter, but it didn't feel like it was like one of those weird, oh my God, how did this shot not go down type of things. It mostly guarded and well guarded, you know, on both ends of the floor. I never felt like, you know, UConn had there was a couple Mullen shots where he got open, and at one point he was like 2 of 14 in the game. You're just like, this is a bad sign and a bad moment for this to happen to UConn, because of all the people on the court, you're thinking you need like at least an A- game out of Braylon Mullins to hang in here. But, you know, it felt, at least here in the arena, to me, the shooting was bad, but it felt like there was an obvious cause in front of you every time it happened. It wasn't one of those where it's just like people are groaning because they couldn't believe a wide open 3, you know, rimmed out or whatever, if that makes sense.
And if you're UConn, you do have to kind of look at the precedent that was set by Michigan's defense, right? 4 straight games their opponent had their worst field goal percentage game of the season. So it's not like you're unique in the sense that, hey, we just had an off night. It's like this is a little bit by design with Michigan's defense, and the fact that they were able to make shots really tough and difficult over and over again. And you saw it with Terrace Reed. He was seeing ghosts at times. And that's just not what we've seen throughout the entire tournament. So it's just a very, very odd situation overall. And, you know, I don't think UConn should really hang their head, but so much. I thought they did everything they could, but they were just outmatched. I mean, Michigan was the best team in the country. And I think, you know, funny enough, in the title game, that tends to be how it plays out, right? The best team usually wins. We don't get many upsets in the title game. I mean, Valvano, you could point to maybe UConn in 99, but for the most part, the best team comes away with the win. And I felt like that was the story again tonight.
Agree. All right. Well, this is a little treat for the folks at home. We're going to bring in our buddy Will.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
What's up, Will? Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Looking good. looking a lot less lost on sleep than the two of us are.
Oh, man, I'm proud of you guys for fighting through it. You got it's a lot. We were talking about it, like the whole setup there is just, there's so much going on. It's hard to kind of keep your focus in the right places and then also try to dissect what's going on in real time. So kudos to you guys for being able to talk about this game and break it down. It's almost easier sometimes just to watch the broadcast.
100%. Okay, yeah. Will, what did you make of it?
I thought both teams had great game plans defensively. Michigan did a great job switching the off-ball screens. That's what they've done all year, and UConn still got them on a few. But the way they switched those seemed to stunt UConn's action a little more than I've seen most teams do, definitely more than Illinois for sure. Mm-hmm. But UConn did a great job on funneling a lot to the paint, a lot to the rim, and they made some of those finishes quite tough. I thought Hurley and Dusty, both fantastic today. And what you want in those in games like this, where the coaches are roughly equal, the game plans are roughly equal, is for it to be decided by the players. And I thought that was how it was. I know a lot of people are going to talk about the officiating, whatever. I kind of thought that was about natural based on how I would say the two teams play. But I thought the right person won most outstanding player for the Final Four. Right team won the game. It wasn't the most beautiful thing we've ever seen, but I think it was a good fitting ending for the season as a whole.
Yeah, that's just what we were saying. It shooting aside, it felt high level.
Yeah.
And I will say Hurley kind of poured water on the reffing thing. You know, a reporter did try to draw him out late in his press conference and did say, oh, you know, the fouls that, and Hurley was immediately like, oh, this guy, like, he's trying to get me in trouble. Like, can we find reporters for this? Like, and he basically said that there were a few calls that they felt like they could have got that would have maybe changed thing. And, like I was just saying, Tate, where he's just like living and dying with every bounce of the ball over there because he knows this is such an uphill battle and there's so much to overcome.
They need all
when
those
you're up
little
against
things
Michigan.
to break their way. Yeah.
100%. So you could see why he was dying with them. But he did say, like, it's a physical game. It's a hard game to referee. And he's like, if those three guys are, reffed every single game the rest of my career, I'd be pretty happy with that. So he didn't, go crazy with it. But there's, there are a couple here and there. I did see some of that online of people being like, it's the difference in this game is the referees. And it's like, I don't know, man. I didn't feel that way here anyway.
It does feel like a copium for people to go to free throw differential these
Yes.
days and kind of just point out the free throw differential. When you really think about the way UConn had to play this game, they were so perimeter oriented because they were trying to stay away from what Mara was able to present at the rim that it makes sense why they wouldn't get as many foul calls because they're not going in to that mess and they're trying to win from the outside. So it does explain itself. It was also funny to see Jeffrey Anderson get absolutely demolished at one point. At least for the viewers at home. That was fun.
Poor high knees. Those knees are going to be even higher next year.
Yeah, they said
that was my first thought.
Out.
He's going to need a big time aerobic workout upgrade to get the kinks out of those knees. So I want to ask you while we've got you here, what did you make of the Final Four as a whole? Is this your first one or
third? First
okay.
one is Credential Media. They did a great job as always. Warlock, awesome. Everybody here awesome to work with.
Shout out to Dave. Great dude.
Dave is the man. He is the man. We had seats in the end zone. I was up top for the first game with the Weave boys. Came down for the second. Missed the Chainsmokers. It is what it is. I heard they played closer, which is all that really matters to me. Maybe you're a Paris guy. I don't know. You could love Paris. It's up to beauty in the eye of the beholder and the ears of the beholder. But no, it was great. Had a great time. It's always surreal when it ends because it's like, everybody, some will go straight into portal mode. I'm a little more like, looking back at what we've seen both tonight and this year as a whole, and, felt like we got blessed with a really, really great season of college hoops.
Yeah, I'm always deeply sad when the game is over. I'm talking to my wife about it. She always makes fun of me because I'm like, almost immediately, I'm like, ugh, this is so sad. Like, because as much as I love, or I should say love, as much as I now enjoy the offseason more because of the portal and all that good stuff, there is more going on, and it's fun to dig into teams a little bit more as you go and kind of try to figure out some of the roster movement out. I still just want to watch basketball. And you guys remember when we started the season, the three of us, right after Arizona, Florida, and it was just like, I was hyped up, man, because it was a great game, clearly super talented teams. The sport's in such a great place right now. That I do get bummed out when people are out here milling around on the confetti and taking their selfies and all that good stuff. It's a sad moment, but it was a great Final Four. Great city for it, and I'll be interested to see Tate. I want to, Will, I want to get your take on this really quickly. Looking ahead a little bit, do you think Dusty's win tonight and the way I think it kind of Michigan is the exemplar of this new sort of meta of being really big and dominating on both ends of the rim. How do you think that, other than, average big guys getting big bags this summer, how do you think that's going to affect what we see in the future? Because I'm kind of curious as to whether we might see a little bit of a tactical swerve earlier, as opposed to getting like 2 years of this. Guys might already be looking at some of the numbers people are asking for when they're building these teams this summer and figuring out a way to move in a different direction again.
I was driving around thinking about this morning. Real MJ Lenderman hours. I think when a team signs a large big that can't move, they should put the highlights to "You have bought yourself a boat." I think that'd be a good move by them. But the game goes in waves, right? Right now it's 2 bigs, 3 bigs. Everybody wants to play front court heavy. There will be a team champion in the near future that kind of goes back to that 4-out, 5-out style, drags it back to the perimeter. and then we'll just kind of go with that little tug back and forth the rest of the way. And I kind of think that's how we're headed for a little bit here.
And that was kind of UConn tonight. I mean, their level of dominance around the rim is kind of oriented around one guy, and then they have Caravan playing, kind of your classic small ball four half the time, and it works for them with the way they run their offense. But it wasn't like Hurley went crazy adjustment mode and had two centers in the game per much tonight. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out from here. All right, I'm gonna get Tate's take on UNC and all kinds of good stuff here, but thank you for stopping by the show, Will. It's been great to do the Final Four with you.
Great to see you, man.
Tate, you are the man.
Salute
Eamonn
to
is
you.
the man too. This is the best show. The best show.
Nice.
Love it.
It's great to be
What a
teammates,
nice
man.
guy. Yeah. What a guy, Will. All right, we'll see you in a little bit.
See you soon.
Save me a beer if you have any. I don't think I have any more left. Okay. All right, we're back to the two-man rotation. We got Will's check-in on stuff. It's been great hanging out with Will all weekend.
Man.
So, do we have anything else on the title game you want to talk about? I mean, anything else that sticks out to you? How was the broadcast at home? You felt good? It was enjoyable?
Yeah, it was a good broadcast. It just kind of felt like it was inevitable what was going to happen. I mean, there was a little bit of excitement. I mean, when Ball banked in the three, it did feel like, oh man, UConn will not die. And I think that's like enough credit to give UConn, because like this team just continued. They were not the most talented team in the country. They weren't even close to as talented as 2024 or 2023. But the fact that like they continued to find ways to compete and contend and to eventually win every game except for the last one. I just think you got to give a tip of the cap. And, I think for me to see both those coaches on that stage, it gave me that sense of, man, we're in a good spot that we have this type of coaching at such a high level going head to head. And I hope this is a game and a battle that we see in the future. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that we see Dusty May and Dan Hurley on this stage going at it again, because it's great for college basketball to have those two high level coaches going at it. I hope that the NBA doesn't try to steal one or both of those guys. And I hope we can enjoy them in college for as long as we can.
Yeah, it was the inevitability thing was the thing I'll probably remember about it most, and the search for a counter indicator, deep in the second half. You mentioned the solo ball three. Okay, they rule that, and then right after was the Terrace Reed steal out top, right?
Yep.
And Reed comes down. It's like, if that ball doesn't run away from him, he gets a dunk. Now we're cooking. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now people on press row are starting to, put their
Everybody
heads up a
sits
little
up
bit.
in their seat a
Everybody
little bit.
sits
Yeah.
up. They start to grab each other's arms and make those knowing looks of like, oh shit, here we go. And it just never quite got all the way there. And like we said, kind of at the top. I mean, it just felt like Michigan wasn't. It was all Madden mode. You have to do everything perfectly against this Michigan team, and you have to hope they give you like a C or D game shooting, and it didn't happen, and it was sort of fascinating to watch it play out. Even if you're right, I think the complaints about the shooting and whatever will be that's not something I'll take away from the game. Like it's not like we have to have a big conversation about the stadium shooting like we did in 2011 or whatever. And the overinflated balls or the tight rims, or I don't know. I just think everybody played pretty good defense.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff that it's almost like you go back to the well. You're just trying to find something to talk about. But I think this was a well-played game that was created by design by Dan Hurley, and I think that Michigan matched that game and was able to find a way to win that game, which makes them even more worthy of a champion, that they were able to play completely differently than they've been able to play throughout this entire tournament. It's not just throughout the entire season. It's like throughout this entire tournament, Michigan has been able to set the terms of engagement, and they weren't able to tonight, which is credit to UConn. But then you have to give the ultimate credit to the champions for finding a way. So, Dusty May, he did it, and it's just it's a cool moment for Michigan as a program too, and for the Big Ten. I mean, now we don't have to hear about that anymore either. Like, the Big Ten hasn't won the big one since 2000. Like, there's just so many things that we kind of check the box to get rid of. That's a little bit of nonsense and a little bit like not necessary to the actual story. So it's nice to have a good story in that sense.
Yeah, and that speaks to the inevitable thing with Michigan too. Is like, I didn't even think about that the entire time. You know what I mean? I think if Michigan had come in as an underdog, or the like the 2013 team, good team, but not like this historically great. If they win this, they go down in the annals type of Michigan, behemoth. And that was, I remember it being a big topic of conversation at the time of like, oh, Michigan's got a chance here, blah, blah. I don't remember anybody talking about that at all this weekend, because it's just sort of like, especially after Saturday, it was like, practically chalk it up and you're already moving on to the next thing. It wasn't like a big talking point. But yeah, it's a huge night for the Big Ten. That's been a thing for forever now. And now they're the reigning national champions in both men's basketball and football.
And women's basketball with UCLA.
And women's basketball with UCLA. Well, when your conference is like 35 teams, you tend to
UCLA is a little bit harder to parse through, but yeah,
you get more bites at the apple when your conference is a completely massive, unwieldy thing. But they all count. They all count. When I was doing the college hoops Jeopardy in the summer with Will and some of those other guys, one of the final Jeopardy questions was like, write down how many national champions come from each conference, and I put the Pac-12 because I forgot UCLA was not in the Pac-12 anymore, and those guys were making fun of me, but they count for the Big Ten now. I'm like, this doesn't feel right at all. Like, this is nonsense. The Big Ten can't count the John Wooden's national championship.
They're counting Maryland now. I had some people correcting me that Maryland was 2002. I'm like, no, guys, not in my book.
No chance. That does not. Yeah, that doesn't work. You can't. You don't get that. Absolutely not. That is not that. Yeah, we got to figure out a better way to do these records. But anyway, you're right. It's a big night for the Big Ten, and I'm sure there's some conference officials probably standing out here right now, quite thrilled with how things have played out in the league in the NIL era, and something to keep an eye on moving forward, because Michigan basketball has always kind of been a thing. But this is the last piece I guess I wanted to talk to you about, where we rank them historically. Because after Saturday, given the season that they've had and some of the relative, whether it's adjusted efficiency stats or whatever you want to do, they are in the conversation for one of the best teams in 25 years, 30 years? Like, where are you on that with sort of where you rank them out?
Yeah, I have a hard time with like those conversations. I mean, I feel like 2023 or 2024 UConn was one of those, or 2023, whichever of those UConn teams you wanted to throw out there. And then I try to like retroactively be like, well, could they beat the 2007 Florida team? And then I'm like, going to 2001 Duke, and I get a little bit lost in like I'm just like, they're all so good in their own ways, and I don't even know like what 2021 Baylor looks like against these teams. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know what the matchup looks like, and I don't even know if that's even the conversation. But I definitely think that they're in the conversation because they have been that dominant. And I know the Fab Five guys are talking about like, if they win, they'll be the greatest Michigan team ever. I think that's a fair place to start, right? Like, they're the greatest Michigan team ever, especially because they got the job done. And I think that's no disrespect to the Fab Five in 92 and 93, because they were obviously great teams. But I think you can give this team the feather in the cap. 1989 Michigan's a great team as well. Obviously the last team to win a championship. But I would go and say that would be fair. Say 2026 is the best Michigan team ever. To then build it out, I mean, top 10, I think, is a very fair point. If you can get in the top 5, I feel like you're just kind of grasping at straws to prove your point there. It's a little bit more difficult to do. But again, you just want to give credit to how great they've been, and also give credit to Dusty May, because that's a big factor in the conversation as well. Like, the coach that they have is one of the best coaches we've seen. And we saw him do it at FAU, and we just saw him win a national championship with Michigan. So that's a roundabout way to give you no answer there, but I do think that they're an all-time great team.
It's a good off-season thought experiment. I'm going through some of the old teams here. I mean, look, like, there's teams that didn't win the title that you could put in this conversation, like that 2015 Kentucky team.
Right.
I'm sitting here thinking, like, does this Michigan team beat 2015 Kentucky? It would be a very good game,
Yeah,
and that Wisconsin team that didn't win it
could be a team that's like in the conversation right there. That's the hard part, You start getting lost in all these other teams. And you're like, man, they were really good. 2005 Illinois, man, they were really good.
I mean, the still the top ranked team in Ken Pomeroy's database, which goes back to 1997, is 1999 Duke. And it's like by a fair margin. And they obviously, lost that national title game to a UConn team. That was the most when that line opened the other night, the 7.5 Michigan spread. That was the biggest spread since that game, I believe, that UConn Duke game. And obviously, We know how that played out, and that was kind of an interesting little historical parallel here. But Michigan got the job done, and it was a pretty comprehensive, consummate performance. I'll go through and we'll do a bracket or something. This
Yeah,
summer.
that'd be fun. I think bring the people in to vote on it a little bit too. But yeah, 99 Duke is a perfect example. Like that team was incredible, and it felt like a foregone conclusion that they were going to win. The UNLV teams, obviously, they're incredible in their own right. You just sort of 2009 North Carolina dominates the tournament, doesn't even have a close game. So like you really can. I mean, I think the only answer that I would be a little bit like, yeah, they're not in the conversation, maybe is 2014 UConn. And that's no disrespect because that was an incredible run and they were able to find a way to win a championship, but they're not like an all-time title team. Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah, come on.
A little bit different.
No offense to the 2014 kid, but they finished 15th that year in adjusted efficiency, despite winning the title. And Ken's model, for what it's worth, like big wins in the tournament move you. You know what I mean? Like you move up. So for them to have finished 15th, despite beating that Florida team and getting all the way to the title that year, kind of tells you where they were to start. But that was hell of a run. But I think this Michigan team's probably.
I think they jumped 20. Them, yeah. I can say that. Yeah.
I don't want to add any insult to injury.
Yeah, that's right. No disrespect. UConn won the national championship that year, so
they've got 6 titles, so they can feel good about each and
first
every one
loss in a title game. I still you look at all these blue blood programs, and obviously UConn is now in that conversation, obviously. But to never have lost a title game, I think it's a different kind of pain for like blue blood programs to go through, especially in recent times. It can really hurt you. North Carolina 2022. There's still times where I just have night sweats thinking about that game and how I felt at halftime and how the end result went. And I think like for UConn fans, this is even more of a welcome to the blue blood family, because there's always going to be a game like that, and I feel like this might be one of those.
Yeah, and the post game stuff. Hurley was clearly bummed out and upset and heartbroken and all of that, but it felt very much like all right, he was upset for his guys and upset that it was over more than he was like, we should have won that game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it was kind of like a shake hands and move on sort of.
I mean, good for Hurley though. I mean, I'm glad that he handled it that way. I mean, you never know like how someone that is that in it could be after a loss because he's only felt the win. So I mean, I would give him. I didn't see the post game yet, but I'll give him credit for taking it that way because you can see how it could go sideways. We saw Gino Auriemma, who's won so many, obviously not have the best reaction with Dawn Staley. So I mean, it can go sideways quick.
It can. One stat I wanted to follow up on because we talked about this on Saturday when he was like, 11-0 past the Sweet 16 against the spread. He is now 19-1 against the spread in his last 20 tournament games. I mean, that continues to be completely ludicrous. Obviously, UConn
covered the spread tonight, which is crazy.
Sure did. And national title teams, very rarely that happens to. I think there's been like 3 in the last 30 years or something I saw earlier. It's like very rare that actually occurs, and again, kind of played out the way we expected. Inevitable Michigan, UConn giving it a go, and it didn't play out. So that's our 2026 national title. We'll have more time to eulogize them and the season, but I did before we go, Tate, want to check in with you, noted UNC alum that you are. We had a hiring of the next men's head basketball coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels was hired today. What are you thinking? How are we feeling?
Yeah, I woke up this morning. I had a text that was like, signs are trending towards Michael Malone. I had the initial list, and he was kind of like, also included on that list. And I think they talked to Michael Malone early, but it did feel like something where they were trying to keep it. If you talk to the Carolina side of things, it was all, hey, keep it college basketball. We want a top flight coach in college basketball. And then, from the agent side, you just heard some, grumblings like, they're going to wait for Billy Donovan, of course. And then they're going to see if this, works out. And they're going to reach out to Ben McCollum, who they did reach out to. And Ben McCollum kind of decided, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not going to throw my hat in the ring. I'm happy. I'm not going to mess with Happy. The old Jimmy V line, right? Don't mess with Happy. So I feel like a lot of coaches in college basketball kind of went with that route. But yeah, when I got that message this morning, I reached out to a couple other people on the agent side, and they were like, yeah, I've heard that, the Pelicans were identifying Michael Malone, and Michael Malone has basically told them that he's moved on to North Carolina. which was a little shock to the system. And then obviously it just got announced. Pete Thamel, shout out to Thamel, he was locked in, and just, I see the tweet. I had a lot of people like, is this real? Is this happening? And that's just how quickly it moved. It went from like, hey, this seems to be the talk these days, or this morning. I mean, think about 48 hours. It goes from Tommy Lloyd, all signs are pointing to Tommy Lloyd, to he's now decided in the 11th hour to stay at Arizona, which is, very fair for him to do, to, you wake up on a Monday morning of the national championship game and Michael Malone is the head coach before the portal opens at midnight. Sean May will be on staff. Pat Sullivan will stay on staff. Eric Hoots, who's a longtime guy there, will still be around on staff as well. So Malone's going to keep some of the regulars, the UNC regulars around, and he's going to add a few more pieces to the staff. And I'm excited to see what it looks like. I am still trying to piece together my own thoughts on it. I've talked to a lot of former players. People are excited. And he's kind of gotten the green light from, the powers that be at UNC, right? Roy Williams was super excited about the idea of it. So to get Roy's blessing is a big deal. Michael Jordan, has given his blessing, which is obviously a huge deal when it comes to North Carolina basketball. James Worthy has said nice things that I've heard. Danny Green I talked to today. Danny was very excited about it. Played for Michael Malone when he was in Cleveland. So, you put it all together, it seems like it could work out. But the next step is like, what does it look like in college basketball? And I think everybody's trying to figure that out.
Yeah, what are you hearing from like UNC fans? I feel like you're pretty obviously tapped in on the fan base. Like, but after the initial surprise, is this like seen as a positive development, or is it just kind of like we'll see how it goes? You know what I mean? Because I can see like Michael Malone's a good basketball coach, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no dispute. He's not like with all due respect to like Mike Woodson, who was an NBA coach for a long time and was like well liked in NBA circles, but did not have a sterling winning percentage as an NBA coach and was just kind of like a replacement level guy. I think Malone is considered in NBA circles way above that in terms of acumen, but it's just the classic questions about adjusting to what's it honestly, for coming from the pros, a pretty weird sport is college basketball these days.
Yeah, it's. I think the fans, the fans are never to be trusted with some of this stuff, right? I mean, fans react in their own way. I think some people were blindsided by it, and then I think some people were doing this is Belichick all over again. It's a big name, but he's not going to bring anything to the table. He's an old guy who's outdated. But I just want to remind people, he's 2 years older than Tommy Lloyd. So I think that's another piece of it that no one's really bringing up. And from what I gather, just talking to some former assistants of his and people that have worked with him, they've just said that his demeanor and kind of the way he carries himself is a much more college level coach than an NBA coach. And a lot of the things that he demanded of NBA players was grating and a little bit unpleasant for NBA guys, and probably works more in a college setting. And it does seem like, I mean, I know Kenny Smith said that and people rolled their eyes. They're like, he wants someone to go to Carolina that wants to retire there. That seems to be like what Michael Malone kind of sold them on, where he's like, if you give me this job, that's where I want to be, and I want to like be a part of this whole thing. And it all sounds good. I hope that it actually is true. But for him to turn down NBA opportunities and go to North Carolina, I think that's a thing that you should be happy about, and not something that you should be upset about. And for fans to be that way would be a little ridiculous to me.
Right. Well, and that has to be what it is, because the North Carolina coach should be the kind of guy who's there until he retires if things are going well. And if he's not, it's because things have stopped going well, and it's you gotta make a new decision and move on. But the idea of that job being I'll do this for a little while and then maybe I'll check out another NBA. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not what it is. So you got to be completely all in on I'll be here for a while. Also, I didn't realize he's only 2 years older than Tommy Lloyd. That's insane.
Yeah,
I guess when you think about it, Tommy was at Gonzaga for a long time, so it makes sense when you think about it for a second. But you think of Tommy Lloyd as being this like young coach,
it's just funny the perception of it, right? Yeah, it's like Tommy Lloyd in our mind is 40, Michael Malone is 60, but really it's like Tommy Lloyd's 51 and Malone's 53. You know what I mean? So like it's somewhere in the middle.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Another one of the many sort of news dumps that you get at the Final Four, which makes it so special. You wake up on a Monday after hanging out with some friends the night before, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this. That's interesting.
Yeah, I wish I could have given you more heads up. I actually, Trilly reached out to me. It was like, are you hearing any rumblings? And I just messaged him. I was like, I'm hearing Malone this morning. He just goes, gross.
Oh, God.
And then here we are.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the reaction to the hire is never the most important thing, and I'm not just saying this because you're a UNC guy or whatever. It's like the whole win the press conference thing, make the big splashy hire. Indiana won the press conference when they hired Archie Miller.
Yep.
And how did that go? It was 4 years of the most unwatchable basketball of all time. And, the program still hasn't been, performing at the level that most of its fans expect. So the flashy, up-and-coming college coach type of hire, you think UNC maybe does that on steroids, but it's not always how it works out,
Yeah, and there's also a lot of different coaches that stayed for reasons that I can understand. There's a lot of people talking about, well, this person said no and that person said no. I mean, a lot of that was more gauging interest, and then there's only a few people that actually got offered the job. And then for Malone to sort of be sitting there, and he's been in practices all year, it's I just think it was kind of staring at him dead in the face, and they went for it. And you said it. I mean, you don't have to win. I don't care about the press conference. I would love to win the press conference, but Hubert kind of won the press conference. Hubert said all the things that the Carolina fans wanted to hear, and 5 years later, you're looking for a new head coach. So, other than he had a white wife, I guess that wasn't great when he said that. But other than
that still gets brought up quite often. I see that make its way through Twitter quite often. I believe your colleague Van Lathan.
Yeah, Van and Joel, my co-hosts, they bring that up all the time. So that was not great for the press conference. But yeah, like you said, you want to win the games, not the press conference, and that's what really matters.
Yeah, that was an all-time comment from Hubie there.
I don't know who told him to say that, but that was not it. Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Well, I think that's kind of what we have. It's one game to talk about. It's over.
Yep.
Title's done, and it's probably about time to pack things up here at the Final Four. Also, it looks like they're beginning to unplug various cords next to the table over here. So
that's perfect.
That could be potentially problematic for the quality of our video and audio feed here. So I think we'll probably call it there. Tate, really quickly, I wanted to thank you for doing these shows with me this year. It's been an absolute blast to talk to you. Just been a lot of fun going through the season, really all season, right? Because we opened up the first night with the live show on the podcast, and been doing it every week since. We're going to keep doing it our weekly show, and I think in the season, when it comes back around in the fall, we'll be ramping up even a little bit more with the schedule and stuff. So it's been really good. Wanted to thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a little bit of a weird season for me, not knowing what was going to happen. So I was very happy to find a new home and be able to talk to you about college basketball. So appreciate the Basket Under Review team. Happy to be a small part of the team. And next year, I hope to be at the Final Four with all you guys, and we can do this in person. And they don't have to pull the plugs out for us. You know what I mean? We can just talk to each other. So that's the good news.
If people watching the video feed can see my camera shaking because the dude's ripping out cords behind me on the tables, shaking my camera. So I think we're running out of time. But yeah, really appreciate you. We'll do it again, and I'll probably be back next week as far as I know. I got to check with Trilly and the boys, but we'll have plenty to talk about all
Portal
through
talk.
The offseason. Portal talk, coaching talk, long-term tactics and strategy stuff that I kind of find fascinating, talking to people around the Final Four this weekend. So we'll be able to cover all that. Thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you for spending the college hoop season with us, our first season under Basket Under Review. It's been a blast, and thank you to our producer Corey, and thank you to Trilly. And people are yelling now, so I'm going to end the podcast. But thank you to everybody for listening and supporting us, and thank you to Tate. And we will talk to you again next week from the Final Four. Peace out. Bye-bye.